Hello, friends. Let's start the second part of the episode. Please like this video and subscribe the channel. The courtroom no longer felt like a place of law. It felt like a place where truths came to die, or worse, to finally live. By the time the morning session began, the air had already changed. Not quieter, no, there were just as many people packed into the benches, just as many reporters gripping their pens, but heavier. Like, everyone present understood that what they were about to witness wouldn't be loud or explosive. It would be something far more dangerous. Quiet truth. The kind that doesn't shout, but stays. Christine sat near the front, her shoulders tense, fingers intertwined so tightly her knuckles had turned pale. She hadn't cried since yesterday, not after the texts, not after the whispers about the cabin, but her silence now carried more weight than any tears ever could. Across the room, an empty chair remained untouched. Mary's. And beside it, Robin's absence still lingered like a ghost, even though she had briefly returned the previous day. Today, she was gone again. Janelle, however, was here. And when her name was called, the shift in the room was almost physical. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate either. She simply stood. Steady. Measured. Controlled. If the others had been storms in this courtroom, emotional, unpredictable, Janelle was something else entirely. She was gravity. She walked to the stand in a simple blue outfit, her hair pulled back neatly, her expression composed. There was no trembling in her hands, no dramatic pause before she sat. But something in her eyes gave her away. Not fear. Not even anger. Recognition. Like she had already lived through what everyone else was just beginning to understand. "State your name," the clerk said. "Janelle Brown. Relation to the deceased?" She paused, just briefly. "Spiritual wife." The words didn't echo. They sank. Married 1993. Separated 2022. The attorney nodded slowly, watching her carefully. "Mrs. Brown, were you aware of a woman named Amara Lee before this case?" For the first time, Janelle hesitated. Her lips pressed together. Her gaze flickered, just once, toward Amara, who sat still as stone across the courtroom. Then back down. "Not by name," she said quietly. A pause. But I knew someone existed. No gasps followed. No whispers. Just a slow, collective realization settling into every corner of the room. Not surprise. Confirmation. "What made you suspect that?" the prosecutor asked. Janelle exhaled softly. There was a cabin. The word alone seemed to carry history. He said it was for retreats. Reflection. Time alone. She swallowed. But I saw the address once. Looked it up. And? It wasn't a retreat. Her voice remained calm. It was a home. The courtroom didn't react outwardly, but something inside it shifted, like a foundation cracking beneath polished floors. "Did you confront him?" "No." "Why not?" Janelle looked up this time, not at the lawyer, but somewhere beyond him. Somewhere distant. "Because I knew what he would say," she answered. And I wasn't ready to hear it. That was the moment everything changed. Because her silence, her years of silence, suddenly made sense. It wasn't ignorance. It was survival. The prosecutor moved carefully now, as if aware that pushing too hard might shatter something fragile but essential. "Your Honor, we'd like to introduce Exhibit E." The judge nodded. Photos appeared on the screen. Grainy at first, taken from a distance. Then clearer. Cody, standing outside a rustic cabin. Beside him, Amara. Grocery bags in their hands. Another image. The porch. Sunlight. Stillness. Cody reading. Amara sitting beside him, relaxed at ease. Then the third photo appeared, and the room went still. Janelle. In the distance. Sitting alone on a bench. Watching. The implication didn't need explanation. "Mrs. Brown," the prosecutor said softly, "is that you in the photograph?" "Yes." "Why were you there?" Janelle's breathing slowed, controlled. "I followed him once." The words landed gently, but they hit hard. Not closely. "I didn't want him to know." "Did you approach him?" "No." "Why not?" She blinked. "I didn't need to." A pause. "I saw enough." The courtroom wasn't watching a witness anymore. It was watching a memory unfold. I parked down the road, she continued. Walked just far enough to see the house. Her voice softened, but didn't break. I saw them together. What did you feel? That question lingered longer than the others. Janelle didn't rush her answer. It wasn't what I expected, she said finally. No anger. No screaming inside me. She looked down at her hands. Just clarity. The word echoed in its own quiet way. Like watching someone else live the life you thought you agreed to. Christine's head lowered slightly at that. Across the room, Amara remained motionless, but her eyes flickered. Did you tell the other wives? The attorney asked. No. Why not? Janelle's answer came immediately this time. Because they were already drowning. A beat. Christine was breaking. Mary was holding on to something that wasn't there anymore. And Robin, she hesitated, was pretending everything was still intact. The truth didn't explode. It settled. Heavy. Final. What would it have changed, Janelle added quietly, to throw another stone into the water? The prosecutor stepped back for a moment, then moved forward again. Did you ever discover financial connections between Mr. Brown and Miss Lee? Yes. That answer came without hesitation. I saw a bank statement. A transfer from our joint LLC. To whom? An account I didn't recognize. Did you ask him about it? Yes. And what did he say? That it was a business loan. Did you believe him? Janelle didn't smile. Didn't scoff. No, she said simply. Then why didn't you press further? Her answer was almost too quiet to hear. Because I didn't want another lie. And just like that, the courtroom understood something devastating. It wasn't that the truth had been hidden. It was that it had been avoided. By everyone. Mrs. Brown, the prosecutor said carefully, in your opinion, did Cody love her? That question changed everything. For the first time, Janelle truly paused. Thinking. Not reacting. I think, she said slowly, he was different with her. How? With us. He played roles. She looked straight ahead now. With Robin, he was the victim. With Mary, the obligation. With Christine, the authority. With me, the strategist. A breath. But with her. She glanced at Amara again. He didn't have to perform. Silence. And that kind of freedom, she added softly, can feel like love. No one spoke after that. Not immediately. Because for the first time in the trial, the question wasn't about betrayal anymore. It was about truth. And whether any of them had ever really known it. By the time Janelle stepped down from the witness stand, the courtroom no longer felt divided. It felt hollowed out, like something essential had been removed, leaving behind only the structure of what once stood there. No one reached for her as she passed. Not Christine. Not the empty space where Mary should have been. Not even Robin, still absent, still avoiding whatever this had become. Janelle returned to her seat quietly, her face unchanged. But the weight of her words lingered, suspended in the air like dust no one could clear. Judge Marston didn't call for a recess. He didn't need to. Everyone understood that stopping now would only delay what was coming next. And what came next was proof. Your Honor, the prosecutor began, voice measured but firm. The state would like to introduce physical evidence related to the property previously referred to as the cabin. A faint shift moved through the gallery. Not surprise. Recognition. Because by now, the cabin wasn't just a place. It was the center of everything. Proceed, the judge said. The monitor flickered to life. The first image appeared clear, high resolution. A cabin nestled deep among towering pines. Green tin roof. Weathered wood. Private. Hidden. Not temporary. Not borrowed. Lived in. The second image followed. The porch. Closer this time. And there they were again. Cody and Amara. Not distant figures. Not blurred outlines. Close. Comfortable. His hand resting over hers. Her head leaning lightly against his shoulder. There was no mistaking it now. This wasn't escape. This was life. Christine inhaled sharply. Not loud, but enough. Janelle's eyes dropped to the table, her fingers gripping the edge just slightly tighter. Still controlled, but anchored. Then came the interior photos. And those changed everything. The cabin inside wasn't bare. It wasn't staged. It was intimate. A blanket draped across a couch like it had been used that morning. 2 pairs of slippers by the door. A coffee mug on the table, moonlight printed across its surface. Framed photos. Books stacked unevenly. A life, not hidden, but fully formed. And suddenly, the courtroom understood something unbearable. This hadn't been occasional. This had been ongoing. Deliberate. Real. Your Honor, the prosecutor continued, we would now like to submit an audio recording recovered from a monitoring device found on the premises. The room went still again. Not tense this time. Anticipating. Because everyone sensed it, this would be the moment they stopped interpreting. And started hearing. Proceed. A soft crackle filled the room. Static. Then his voice. Not the voice from television. Not the practiced tone, not the confident authority. This voice was softer, slower, unarmored. You always ask me who I am, Cody said quietly. But you're the only place where I don't have to answer that. A pause. Breathing. Uneven. I tried to fix everything, tried to be what they needed. Another pause. But with you, you never asked me to be anything. Silence. I think that's the only time I've ever felt like I was enough. The audio cut. Just like that. No ending. No closure. No one moved. No one dared. Because what they had just heard wasn't just a confession. It was a contrast. And it cut deeper than any accusation ever could. Across the room, a single tear slid down Amara's cheek. She didn't wipe it. Didn't react beyond that. But it was enough. Christine closed her eyes. Slowly. Then opened them again, empty now, like something inside had finally settled into place. Janelle remained still, but her jaw tightened, just slightly. The truth had found its shape, and no one could reshape it now. We would also like to submit written materials recovered from the cabin, the prosecutor continued. Pages appeared on the screen. Handwritten. Messy. Real. The first entry. She never asks where I've been. She never checks my phone. She just lets me exist. I didn't realize how rare that was. Another. Christine thinks I'm selfish. Mary thinks I'm broken. Robin thinks I belong to her. But Amara, she doesn't think anything. She just listens. The words didn't accuse. They didn't defend. They revealed. And somehow, that was worse. This is a journal believed to be authored by Mr. Brown, the prosecutor said. Recovered from the bedside drawer. The judge nodded, writing something down. But even he seemed slower now. More deliberate. Like the weight of the case had shifted from legal to human. Your Honor, the prosecutor added, we now submit the lease agreement for the cabin. A document appeared. Signed under the name, Caleb Brooks. But the next slide followed quickly. Handwriting analysis. A match. Confirmed. Cody Brown. The room absorbed it quietly. No shock left. Only confirmation. Miss Lee, the prosecutor said, turning toward Amara, do you recognize this address? She stood. For the first time that day, all eyes turned fully toward her. Yes, she said. Her voice was steady. That was our home. Not a place. Not a cabin. Home. How often did Mr. Brown stay there with you? 1 week a month, she replied. Sometimes more. And what did he tell the others? That he was on retreat. Therapy. Religious reflection. A pause. But he was with me. No hesitation. No apology. Just truth. What was your life like there? The attorney asked. Amara didn't look at the wives. Didn't glance at the gallery. She looked straight ahead. Simple. A breath. We cooked. Read. Gardened. Another. He laughed more. Silence filled the space around her words. Not dramatic. Not forced. Just undeniable. Christine suddenly stood. No one had asked her to. No one stopped her. Was he different with you? She asked. Her voice wasn't sharp. It wasn't angry. It was searching. Amara met her gaze. Yes. Better. A longer pause this time. Not always, Amara admitted. But he tried. Christine nodded once. That was it. No argument. No tears. Just acceptance. And somehow, that shifted the entire room again. Because this wasn't a fight anymore. It was understanding. The next exhibit appeared. A receipt. A custom pendant. Engraved, K plus a dated months before his disappearance. Were there other gifts? The prosecutor asked. Amara nodded. Letters. Gloves. A framed photo. She hesitated. Once, he gave me a piece of wood. The room stilled. He said it was from a tree behind Christine's porch. Christine's shoulders twitched. Barely. But it was seen. He told me it was the only thing he wanted to bring with him when he left. That was the moment the courtroom stopped feeling like a courtroom entirely. Because this wasn't evidence anymore. It was intimacy exposed. Private pieces of a life no one else had been allowed to see. Judge Marston finally spoke. We will take a brief recess before continuing with closing exhibits. But no one moved. Not immediately. Because leaving meant breaking the moment. And no one was ready to do that. They had just learned something irreversible. Cody hadn't been lost. He hadn't been confused. He hadn't been pulled in different directions. He had chosen. And that choice had been lived. In a cabin far away from everything they thought they shared. By the time the courtroom reconvened, something fundamental had changed. No one rushed back to their seats. No one whispered. Even the reporters, who had spent days chasing headlines, now moved more slowly, as if they understood that what remained wasn't spectacle anymore. It was consequence. Judge Marston took his place without ceremony. His voice, when he spoke, carried a weight it hadn't before. We will now review Exhibit G. A pause. A private video recording recovered from the property associated with the alias Caleb Brooks. The screen flickered on. And for the first time in the entire trial, they saw him. Cody Brown. Not the version anyone recognized. No styled hair. No cameras. No performance. He sat cross-legged on a wooden floor, the cabin walls behind him. A simple mug rested beside him. His shoulders looked heavier, his posture looser, like a man who had finally stopped holding himself together. He leaned forward, adjusting the camera slightly. Then exhaled. If you're watching this, it means I didn't come back. The words landed instantly. Not dramatic. Final. I don't know if that means I left, or if something happened to me. A pause. But either way, this is the only way I could say what I need to say, without being interrupted. The courtroom leaned in, not physically, but emotionally, pulled into something raw and irreversible. I married Mary when I didn't know who I was, he began. His voice was steady, but stripped of ego. I married Janelle because I thought she'd understand me. I married Christine because she believed in me. I married Robin because I thought she could save me. Each sentence felt like a thread being pulled loose. Then, but Amara, a pause. A shift. I didn't choose her to fix anything. His eyes lifted slightly toward the camera. I chose her because I stopped lying to myself. Christine's breathing changed. Subtle, but visible. Janelle didn't move. Robin, now present again, stared at the screen like she was trying to rewrite what she was hearing. I lied to all of you, Cody continued. Not just in words, but in who I pretended to be. His hands clasped together tightly. I told myself I was building a family, that I was loving all of you equally. A bitter exhale. But the truth is, I needed to feel in control. Silence. And when I couldn't control things anymore, I resented you for it. Robin's face broke first. Not loudly, but visibly. Christine pressed her lips together. Janelle closed her eyes. I thought it was love, he said. But I think it was fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of failing. Fear of choosing one life and losing the others. He paused again. Then softer, but I didn't feel that fear with Amara. The room stilled completely. I didn't feel like I had to be anyone. And that's why he reached behind him, pulling out a folded document. I wrote the second will. The air shifted sharply. Not shock. Something deeper. Recognition. Not because I wanted to hurt you, he said, but because I couldn't keep dividing myself into pieces anymore. He looked down at the paper briefly, then back up. She didn't ask for it. She didn't even know. But she was the only part of my life that felt real. What followed wasn't anger. It wasn't even disbelief. It was something far more unsettling, understanding. Mary, he said quietly, I'm sorry I kept you waiting for something I never intended to return to. The empty chair seemed to absorb the words. Janelle, you carried everything. And I let you. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it. Christine, you were the only one who challenged me. And I punished you for it. Christine exhaled slowly. Not breaking. Releasing. And Robin, he hesitated longer this time. You gave me everything you had. His voice lowered. And I still couldn't become the man you thought I was. Robin shook her head slightly, as if rejecting it. But not fully, because part of her already knew. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he said finally. I just didn't want to leave behind another lie. He leaned closer to the camera. I loved all of you in my own way. A breath. But with her, a pause that felt endless. I didn't have to explain myself. His hand lifted slightly toward the lens. That has to mean something. The screen went black. No music. No fade. Just gone. For several seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Because what they had just witnessed wasn't a defense. It wasn't even a confession. It was an erasure of everything they thought they knew. Judge Marston cleared his throat, but even that sounded different now. This court recognizes Exhibit G as valid and admissible. His voice faltered slightly at the end. We will reconvene tomorrow for final proceedings. But the courtroom didn't respond. Because the trial had already ended, at least emotionally. Christine stood first. No permission. No words. She simply walked out. Not angry. Not broken. Finished. Janelle stayed seated a moment longer. Her hands clasped tightly, murmuring something under her breath, too quiet to hear. Then she stood. And followed. Robin remained. For a while. Until the silence around her became too loud to ignore. And when she finally broke, it wasn't dramatic. Just quiet, uncontrollable tears. Amara didn't move. Not immediately. She stared at the dark screen as if something might still appear there. As if he might still speak. But he didn't. And then, just when it seemed nothing more could possibly surface, the final blow arrived. A sealed envelope. Placed gently on the judge's bench. No announcement. No build-up. Just presence. Judge Marston opened it slowly. Carefully. As if expecting it to change everything. And it did. This court has received certified documentation, he said. Along with DNA test results concerning an unnamed minor. The room tightened. Instantly. Involving questions of paternity and legal guardianship. A ripple moved through the gallery. Not loud, but undeniable. Miss Amara Lee, the judge said, looking up, do you wish to testify regarding this? She stood. Calm. Precise. Certain. Yes. She walked to the stand without hesitation. Placed her hand. Swore her oath. Then spoke. The man you knew as Cody Brown, a breath, is the father of my son. The courtroom didn't explode. It fractured. He's 3 years old, she continued. I never said anything. Her voice softened, but didn't weaken. He wanted it that way. Christine didn't move. Janelle covered her mouth. Robin stared, completely undone. But he was there, Amara said. Every month. Sometimes more. A pause. He wasn't absent. He was present. The DNA report was passed forward. Reviewed. Confirmed. 997% probability. Final. Irrefutable. We request recognition of the child as a legal heir, her attorney stated, and a suspension of estate distribution pending trust arrangements. Robin stood abruptly. This is insane, she said. Her voice cracked. You're saying he had a child and no one knew? Amara turned slightly. You knew, she said quietly. Maybe not who, but you knew there was someone. No, Robin whispered. But it didn't land. Because even she wasn't fully convinced. Christine stood again. He already left us, she said softly. We just refused to see it. The room fell still once more. But now the silence carried something new. Not shock. Not grief. Something heavier. Reality. What is the child's name? The judge asked. Amara didn't hesitate. Micah. A breath. Micah Elias Lee Brown. The name settled into the courtroom like a final signature. A video appeared next. Home footage. Cody in a small backyard, barefoot, laughing, pushing a toddler on a swing. "Higher, little wolf," he called. The child's laughter filled the room. Real, unscripted, alive. No one spoke, because there was nothing left to argue. "He came to every birthday," Amara said quietly. "He built toys by hand." A pause. "He said it was the only place he could make something that wouldn't fall apart." Janelle closed her eyes. Christine looked away. Robin sat down slowly, defeated. The judge removed his glasses, rubbing his forehead. "This case is no longer limited to probate," he said. "It now involves inheritance, guardianship, and paternity." He looked out across the room. "Prepare yourselves, because what remains of this family," a pause, "is being rewritten." No one disagreed, because it already had been. Outside, headlines would explode. Inside, there was only one truth left. A boy, unseen, unclaimed, until now. And as the courtroom emptied one final time, no one was thinking about the will, or the betrayal, or even Cody. They were thinking about what had been hidden, and what could never be hidden again. Because in the end, it wasn't the lies that destroyed the family. It was the truth, finally being heard. Second part is over. Next are coming very soon.